Imagine this, a single evening, a life-changing offer and a decision that would unravel a web of secrets, power, and desire. She agreed to $5 million for one night, just one night. But what she didn't know was that the CEO, a man of unimaginable wealth and influence, had other plans. He didn't just want her for the evening. He wanted her forever. And yet, she had her own reasons for saying yes. Reasons that would soon plunge them both into a world of danger, betrayal, and heartbreak. This is not just a story about money, power, or love. This is a story about survival, choices, and the lengths people will go to when everything is on the line. From the very first moment, you're going to be hooked. Why would someone agree to such a deal? What could possibly be worth $5 million? And what happens when the person who holds all the cards decides to change the rules? By the end of this video, you'll have the answers to every question burning in your mind right now. But be warned, this story is not for the faint of heart. It's a roller coaster of emotions, filled with twists and turns that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about love, power, and the human spirit. Let's start with her. Let's call her Elena. Beautiful, intelligent, and fiercely independent, Elena was not the kind of woman who needed saving. But life had other plans. A series of events, each more devastating than the last, left her with no choice but to consider the unthinkable. And then there's him, the CEO. A man whose name alone commands respect, fear, and admiration. He's used to getting what he wants, and what he wants is Elena. But why her? What is it about this woman that makes her worth $5 million? And what happens when she realizes that the price of saying yes might be far higher than she ever imagined? As we dive into this story, I want you to think about the choices you've made in your own life. The moments that defined you, the risks you've taken, and the sacrifices you've made. Because this story isn't just about Elena and the CEO, it's about all of us. It's about the power dynamics that shape our lives, the secrets we keep, and the lengths we'll go to protect the ones we love. Now, let's set the scene. It's a chilly evening in New York City, the kind of night where the skyline glitters like a million diamonds, and the air is thick with possibility. Elena steps out of a sleek black car, her heels clicking against the pavement as she makes her way to the entrance of one of the most exclusive hotels in the world. She's nervous, but she doesn't show it. She's done her research. She knows what she's getting into, or at least she thinks she does. Inside, the CEO is waiting. He's charming, confident, and utterly captivating. But there's something in his eyes, something dark and dangerous that sends a shiver down her spine. What happens next will change both of their lives forever. But I'm not going to give it all away just yet. Because this story is about more than just one night. It's about the choices we make, the secrets we keep, and the price we're willing to pay for the things we want most. So, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why some decisions come with consequences that can never be undone. And here's the thing, this story doesn't just end with Elena and the CEO. There are other players in this game, each with their own agenda, each with their own secrets. There's the best friend who knows more than she's letting on, the rival who will stop at nothing to see the CEO fall, and the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows, pulling the strings behind the scenes. As the pieces of this puzzle start to come together, you'll find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew. But before we go any further, I want to ask you something. What would you do for $5 million? Would you risk everything for a chance at a better life? Or would you walk away knowing that some things come at too high a cost? Keep that question in mind as we dive deeper into this story. Because the choices Elena makes will challenge everything you believe about right and wrong, love and power, and the lengths we'll go to when there's no other way out. Now let's talk about the CEO. He's not your typical villain. He's complex, layered, and utterly fascinating. On the surface, he's the epitome of success, wealthy, powerful, and respected. But beneath that polished exterior lies a man driven by obsession, a man who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. And what he wants is Elena. But why? What is it about her that makes her so irresistible? Is it her beauty, her intelligence, or something deeper, something darker? As the night unfolds, secrets are revealed, alliances are tested, and the line between right and wrong begins to blur. Elena finds herself caught in a web of lies, deceit, and danger, with no way out. But she's not alone. There are others who are willing to help her, others who have their own reasons for wanting the CEO to fail. But can she trust them? Or are they just using her to further their own agenda? By now, you're probably wondering how this story ends. Does Elena get her $5 million? Does the CEO get what he wants? Or does everything fall apart in a spectacular blaze of betrayal and heartbreak? I'm not going to give you the answers just yet, because this story is about more than just the ending. It's about the journey, the choices, and the consequences. So, stay with me, because what happens next will shock you, surprise you, and leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, power, and the human spirit. This is not just a story, it's an experience. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some decisions come with consequences that can never be undone. But before we go any further, I want to hear from you. What do you think happens next? Do you think Elena will make it out alive? Or will the CEO's obsession destroy them both? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Because this is just the beginning. And now, without further ado, let's dive into the heart of the story. The night is young, the stakes are high, and the clock is ticking. What happens next will change everything. But remember, nothing is as it seems, and no one can be trusted. So, buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. End on a cliffhanger as Elena steps into the CEO's penthouse. She notices something strange, a photograph on the wall, a face she recognizes. But before she can process what it means, the door closes behind her, and the sound of the lock clicking into place echoes through the room. She's trapped. But with who? And why? Stay tuned to find out. The photograph on the wall stopped Elena in her tracks. It wasn't just any picture, it was a face she knew all too well. Her best friend Sophia smiled back at her from the frame, her arm draped around the CEO in what looked like a candid moment of intimacy. Elena's heart raced as she tried to make sense of it. Sophia had never mentioned knowing him, let alone being close enough to take a photo like that. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier, as if the walls were closing in. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting the CEO to be standing there, watching her reaction. But he wasn't. Instead, the sound of soft jazz filled the room, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in her mind. Elena's thoughts raced back to the beginning, to the moment she first met Sophia. They had been roommates in college, two young women with big dreams and even bigger ambitions. Sophia was the kind of person who lit up a room, her laughter infectious, her confidence magnetic. She was the one who had encouraged Elena to take risks, to chase opportunities that seemed out of reach. But now, standing in the CEO's penthouse, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia had been hiding something big. The CEO, Alexander Graves, was a man who needed no introduction. His name was synonymous with power, wealth, and success. He had built an empire from the ground up, a conglomerate that spanned industries and continents. But behind the polished exterior was a man shrouded in mystery. Rumors swirled about his past, about the deals he had made and the people he had crossed to get where he was. Some called him a visionary, others a predator. Elena had done her research, of course. She knew the risks of walking into this situation. But $5 million was a life-changing amount of money, enough to erase the debts that had been suffocating her, enough to give her the freedom she had always dreamed of. Or so she thought. As she stood there, staring at the photograph, the pieces of the puzzle began to shift. Sophia had been acting strangely lately, canceling plans at the last minute, dodging questions about her new job. Elena had chalked it up to stress, to the pressures of adult life. But now, she wondered if there was more to it. Had Sophia been working for Alexander all along? Was this whole setup part of some elaborate plan? The questions swirled in her mind, each one more unsettling than the last. The sound of a door opening snapped her back to the present. Alexander stepped into the room, his presence commanding and unnerving. He was dressed impeccably, as always, his tailored suit and polished shoes a testament to his status. But there was something in his eyes, a glint of something darker that made Elena's stomach churn. "I see you've noticed the photograph," he said, his voice smooth and deliberate. "Sophia is quite the remarkable woman, isn't she?" Elena's breath caught in her throat. "How do you know her?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to stay calm. Alexander smiled, a slow, calculated smile that sent a shiver down her spine. "Sophia and I go way back," he said, his tone casual as if they were discussing the weather. "She's been an invaluable asset to my company. And to me." The way he said it, the way his eyes lingered on Elena, made her skin crawl. She felt like a pawn in a game she didn't fully understand, a game with rules she hadn't agreed to. But Alexander wasn't done. "You see, Elena," he continued, stepping closer, "this isn't just about one night. It's about loyalty, trust, and, of course, power. Sophia understands that. And I think, deep down, you do too." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Elena's mind raced, trying to piece together what he meant. Was this a test? A warning? Or something else entirely? Before she could respond, Alexander handed her a glass of champagne, the bubbles dancing in the crystal flute. "To new beginnings," he said, clinking his glass against hers. Elena forced a smile, her mind still reeling. She took a sip, the taste bitter on her tongue. As the night wore on, Alexander led her through the penthouse, showing off the art collection that lined the walls, the rare artifacts that adorned the shelves. "Each piece had a story," he said, "a history." But Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she was the real artifact, the prize he had been waiting to add to his collection. Meanwhile, miles away, Sophia sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. She had tried to call Elena earlier to warn her, but the call had gone straight to voicemail. Guilt gnawed at her, a heavy weight she couldn't shake. She had never meant for things to go this far. When Alexander had first approached her, it had seemed like an opportunity, a chance to climb the corporate ladder and secure her future. But the deeper she got, the more she realized the cost of that ambition. Now, she was trapped in a web of her own making, and the only way out was to play along. But Sophia wasn't the only one with secrets. Across town, a rival CEO, Victor Kane, was plotting his next move. Victor had been watching Alexander for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He knew about the $5 million deal, about Elena, and about the photograph. And he had his own plans for how to use that information. Victor was a man who thrived on chaos, on turning his enemy's strengths into weaknesses. And Alexander's obsession with Elena was a weakness he intended to exploit. As the night deepened, the tension in the penthouse grew. Alexander's charm began to wear thin, revealing glimpses of the man beneath the mask. He spoke of loyalty, of trust, but his words felt hollow, like a script he had rehearsed too many times. Elena listened, her mind racing, trying to find a way out. But the more she learned, the more she realized how deep the rabbit hole went. This wasn't just about money. It was about control, about power, and about the lengths people would go to keep it. By the time the clock struck midnight, Elena knew one thing for certain: she was in over her head. The photograph, Sophia's secrets, Alexander's obsession, it was all connected, a tangled web of lies and deceit. But the question remained, who could she trust? And more importantly, how far was she willing to go to survive? As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Elena made a decision. She would play along for now. She would listen, observe, and gather as much information as she could. But she would also look for a way out, a way to turn the tables on Alexander and reclaim her life. It was a dangerous game, one with no guarantees. But for Elena, it was the only choice she had. And so, the stage was set. The players were in place. and the game was just beginning. But in a world where nothing is as it seems, and no one can be trusted, the only certainty is this: not everyone will make it out alive. The first light of dawn painted the penthouse in soft hues of gold and pink, but the beauty of the moment was lost on Elena. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one more unsettling than the last. Alexander had excused himself to take a call, leaving her alone in the expansive living room. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the city waking up below. She glanced at the photograph again, Sophia's smiling face now feeling like a betrayal. What had her best friend gotten her into? And why had she never mentioned her connection to Alexander? The questions gnawed at her, but there was no time to dwell on them. She needed a plan, a way out of this gilded cage before it became her prison. As she paced the room, her eyes fell on a sleek laptop resting on the coffee table. It was open, the screen glowing faintly. Elena hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. This was her chance, a chance to uncover the truth, to find something she could use against Alexander. She glanced over her shoulder, listening for any sign of his return. The coast seemed clear. With trembling hands, she sat down and began to scroll through the files. What she found made her blood run cold. There were emails, contracts, and financial records all pointing to a web of illegal activities. Money laundering, insider trading, even whispers of something darker, something involving people who had mysteriously disappeared. Elena's stomach churned as she realized the magnitude of what she was seeing. Alexander wasn't just a powerful CEO, he was a criminal, a man who would stop at nothing to protect his empire. And now, she was caught in the middle of it. Before she could process what to do next, a voice shattered the silence. "Find anything interesting?" Alexander stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Elena froze, her heart racing. She quickly closed the laptop and stood, forcing a smile. "Just admiring the view," she said, gesturing to the window. Alexander's eyes narrowed, and for a moment she thought he might call her bluff. But then he smiled, that same calculated smile that sent shivers down her spine. "The view is breathtaking, isn't it?" he said, stepping closer. "But I think you'll find what's inside this room far more intriguing." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, ornate key. "This," he said, holding it up, "is the key to everything. To my empire, my legacy, and, if you play your cards right, your future." Elena's breath hitched. What was he offering? And at what cost? Before she could ask, Alexander turned and walked toward a hidden door she hadn't noticed before. He inserted the key, and the door swung open to reveal a dimly lit staircase leading down. "Come," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "There's something I want to show you." Elena hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to run. But she knew she couldn't. Not yet. She needed to see this through, to gather as much information as she could. With a deep breath, she followed him down the stairs, each step taking her further into the unknown. The air grew cooler, the walls lined with shelves filled with artifacts and documents. It felt like stepping into a museum, but one filled with secrets rather than history. At the bottom of the stairs was a room unlike anything Elena had ever seen. It was a vault, its walls lined with gold and precious gems, but that wasn't what caught her attention. In the center of the room was a glass case, and inside it was a single item, a flash drive. Alexander walked over to it, his movements deliberate. "This," he said, "is the key to everything. Every deal, every secret, every piece of leverage I've ever had. And now, it could be yours." Elena's mind raced. What was he playing at? Was this a test? A trap? Or was he genuinely offering her a way into his world? Before she could respond, Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. "I have to take this," he said, stepping away. "Stay here. We're not done yet." As soon as he was gone, Elena's eyes darted to the flash drive. This was her chance. She could take it, use it to expose Alexander to free herself from his grasp. But at what cost? She knew the risks. If she crossed him, there would be no going back. And yet, if she didn't act now, she might never get another opportunity. Her hand hovered over the glass case, her heart pounding in her chest. But just as she was about to reach for it, a voice behind her made her freeze. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." She turned to see Sophia standing in the doorway, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "Elena, you don't understand what you're getting into," Sophia said, her voice trembling. "Alexander isn't just dangerous. He's untouchable. And if you cross him, he'll destroy you." Elena stared at her best friend, 1,000 questions burning in her mind. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. "Why didn't you warn me about him?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "I tried," she said. "But by the time I realized what he was capable of, it was too late. He owns me, Elena. And if you're not careful, he'll own you too." The weight of Sophia's words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Elena felt the walls closing in, the stakes higher than ever. She had to make a choice: take the flash drive and risk everything, or walk away and live with the consequences. But before she could decide, the sound of footsteps echoed down the stairs. Alexander was coming back. Sophia grabbed Elena's arm, her grip tight. "There's no time," she whispered urgently. "You need to get out of here. Now." Elena hesitated, torn between the need to escape and the desire to uncover the truth. But as Alexander's voice echoed down the staircase, cold and commanding, she knew she had no choice. She had to run. Sophia led her through a hidden passage, their footsteps echoing in the narrow corridor. "Where does this lead?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Out," Sophia replied. "But it won't be easy. Alexander has eyes everywhere. You'll need to disappear, at least for a while." As they emerged into an alleyway, the cold morning air hit Elena like a slap. She turned to Sophia, her mind racing. "What about you?" she asked. "I'll be fine," Sophia said, though her eyes told a different story. "Just promise me one thing: stay away from Alexander. He's not what he seems. And if he finds you..." She trailed off, the unspoken words hanging in the air. Elena nodded, her heart heavy. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear: she was in deeper than she ever imagined. And as she disappeared into the bustling streets of New York, she knew the game was far from over. Alexander would come for her. And when he did, she would need to be ready. But what Elena didn't know was that someone else was watching her, someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Victor Kane stood in the shadows, a smirk playing on his lips. "Let the games begin," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the sounds of the city. And with that, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving Elena to navigate a world where nothing was as it seemed, and no one could be trusted. The stakes had never been higher. The players were in motion, and the final move was yet to be made. But one thing was certain: this was only the beginning. The streets of New York were alive with the hum of morning commuters, but Elena felt like she was moving through a fog. Every face in the crowd seemed suspicious, every glance a potential threat. Sophia's warning echoed in her mind. Alexander has eyes everywhere. She needed to disappear, to find a safe place where she could think, plan, and figure out her next move. But where could she go? She had no allies, no resources, just the clothes on her back and the burning desire to survive. As she turned a corner, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was an unknown number. Her first instinct was to ignore it, but something made her answer. "Elena," a voice said, low and urgent. It was Victor Kane. "I know you're in trouble, and I can help you." Elena's heart raced. How did he know? And why would he want to help her? "What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I want what you want," Victor replied. "To bring Alexander Graves down. Meet me at the old warehouse on 12th Street. Come alone." The line went dead, leaving Elena with more questions than answers. She didn't trust Victor. She knew he was just as dangerous as Alexander, if not more so. But what choice did she have? He was offering her a way out, a chance to fight back. And right now, that was all she had. The warehouse was dimly lit, its walls lined with crates and machinery. Victor stood in the center of the room, his hands in his pockets, a smirk playing on his lips. "You made the right choice," he said as Elena approached. "But time is running out. Alexander already knows you're gone, and he's not going to stop until he finds you." Elena crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "What's in it for you?" she asked. Victor's smirk widened. "Let's just say Alexander and I have a history, and I've been waiting for the perfect moment to settle the score." He handed her a folder filled with documents, bank statements, emails, and photos. "This is everything you need to take him down," Victor said. "But you'll need to act fast. Alexander's empire is built on secrets, and once they're exposed, it will crumble." Elena flipped through the folder, her mind racing. This was it, the leverage she needed. But she couldn't do it alone. As if reading her thoughts, Victor nodded toward the door. Sophia stepped in, her face pale but determined. "I'm in," she said, her voice steady. "I should have done this a long time ago." Elena felt a surge of relief. With Sophia by her side, she felt like they might actually have a chance. The next few hours were a blur. They worked tirelessly, compiling evidence, drafting statements, and reaching out to contacts in the media and law enforcement. Every second felt like a lifetime, the weight of what they were about to do pressing down on them. But they didn't stop. They couldn't be by the time the sun set. They were ready. Elena stood in front of a crowd of reporters, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "My name is Elena Carter," she began, "and I'm here to expose the truth about Alexander Graves." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs as she laid out the evidence, piece by damning piece. The illegal deals, the corruption, the lives destroyed, it was all there, laid bare for the world to see. Alexander's empire began to crumble almost immediately. News outlets picked up the story, authorities launched investigations, and the public turned against him. But Elena knew it wasn't over. Alexander was a man who thrived on control, and he wouldn't go down without a fight. She was right. Days later, as she and Sophia prepared to leave the city, a black car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down and Alexander's cold, calculating eyes met hers. "You think you've won," he said, his voice dripping. "With venom. But this isn't over." Not by a long shot. Elena held his gaze, her fear replaced by a steely resolve. "It is for me," she said. "You don't own me anymore." As the car drove away, Elena felt a sense of closure she hadn't known was possible. She had faced one of the most powerful men in the world and come out on top. But the victory came at a cost. She had lost her innocence, her trust, and a part of herself she would never get back. In the weeks that followed, Elena and Sophia rebuilt their lives, stronger and wiser than before. They knew the world was still full of dangers, of people like Alexander who would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. But they also knew they had the power to fight back, to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. And then, just when they thought it was over, the final twist came. A package arrived at Elena's door. No return address. Inside was a single flash drive, the same one she had seen in Alexander's vault. Attached was a note. For the next chapter, use it wisely. Elena stared at the flash drive, her mind racing. Who had sent it? And what secrets did it hold? She didn't have the answers, but she knew one thing. Her story wasn't over. Not yet. As the screen fades to black, the audience is left with a sense of awe and anticipation. The story of Elena, Sophia, and Alexander is a reminder of the power of resilience, the importance of standing up for what's right, and the unexpected twists that life can throw our way. It's a tale of survival, betrayal, and redemption, one that will stay with viewers long after the video ends. And as the credits roll, one question lingers. What will Elena do with the flash drive? The answer, like life itself, is full of possibilities. But one thing is certain, whatever comes next, she'll be ready.